treading water that they drowning. My head on the swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings.
Hello and welcome to episode 242 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. We got a fun show lined up. You know, it's 98 degrees here in Pennsylvania. It's been crazy hot. Anything more hot is these Dynasty trades. So we just started checking out DynastyDaddy.com, and you should definitely make sure you guys follow them. They list so many cool things about Dynasty trades, and today we're going to go over the top 10 most traded Dynasty wide receivers. Snoog and I are going to take a stance on why you should be trading them or why you should be trading for them. Without further ado, Snoog, how you doing today?
Doing good, Dad. I like that you mentioned the Dynasty trades because I just actually had a ride down to Pennsylvania. I made probably 8 Dynasty trades on the ride down and like 6 on the way back. So about 14 to 15 trades in just a car rides, road trip down to Pennsylvania. This is the time of the year where the trades start to heat up. People get sick of players. People want to buy players. They see one tweet on Twitter and they're like, this guy's unbelievable. I'm going to trade all my Kyler Murray and go get Anthony Richardson. Like this is the time of the year where you could take advantage of just the market fluctuations, and kind of the players that you want to get that other people are undervaluing that they might consider boring.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like early May, everybody's still in rookie fever. They're having their rookie drafts.
Yep.
They're not really trying to trade. And then mid-May, they have all their rookies. They just drafted them. They don't really want to trade. Now all of a sudden we're starting to get camp news. We're starting to do some of those things once we get into June. And the trades in all my leagues have started to pick up. We got a message here from Smooth Criminal Entertainment. He said good morning with his coffee. I'm saying good morning with my C4. A reminder, we are on YouTube. Make sure you guys go over there and smash the subscribe button. We're blown away that we've gone from like 100 subscriptions to we're almost at 1,000 over the last 2 months. So you guys are like totally jumping in there, and we have bonus content. So a lot of people don't realize that is we're doing smash or pass videos at Brock Dynasty's, making some killer content for us. And if you guys go over there, they're 15 minutes actionable type videos where you guys can get more than what we're just doing on here. So yeah, let's jump into this. So like I said, Dynasty Daddy provides a lot of cool things. That's a website that I'm really starting to dive into. And like I said, they have a section where they talk about the most traded Dynasty assets, and I was looking at that in the last week, and we'll start with the first guy. And I want to go player by player. I want to tell you, why we'd be buying those players, why we'd be selling. Because Snoog, a lot of people are saying, well, this guy's a buy, this guy's a sell. And, you and I both agree. When you look at Dynasty and you take your heart out of it, you put your head into it, and you start talking about profiles instead of players, every player's a buy and every player's a sell. It's just price dependent. But I mean, I posted these top 10 and someone's like, I'm only buying this guy. So if you say you're only buying these, so somebody offers you the 20, Jaden Reed for the 204, what are you going to deny that? You've got to jump in on some of these things. So talk to me a little bit about how your thinking is with that. So many guys come up to me and they're like, I don't want this player. How do I get rid of him? Or I am only buying these players. And I feel like you have to have a much more holistic approach when it comes to Dynasty trading.
Yeah, exactly. Time after time, again, we see this in the Dynasty community and in the market itself is people get sick of looking at the same players on their roster. They want change. They want new players. They want new faces. I've seen this one guy in the Patreon. Shout out to the Patreon, what we're doing there. You can find our rankings. You can find everything that we're doing there. Dad and I, myself, doing everything with helping people with trades, draft strategies, all that good stuff. So make sure you check that out. Smash Accept or / Smash Accept Patreon, right? That's what it is.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's phenomenal that we're doing there. But I've seen the same Jalen. This one guy's trying to move Jalen Hurts, and
Adam.
Adam. And I just said to him, like, you don't need to trade Jalen Hurts, right? Like that's a top 4 super flex asset. Like he's trying to kind of do like a rebuild, get Tua plus this, Tua plus that. And I'm like, just keep Jalen, man. Like if you don't get what you truly deserve for that player value wise, hold. Like no one's like holding a gun to your head and saying trade Jalen Hurts, right? It's like you have the opportunity to hold on to that player and move him at the right time. Like when he has that 40-point week, then you can trade him if you really need to. If you need to break him down and go get like 3 or 4 firsts for that asset to start your rebuild, right? To kickstart it. But I see this, like Dad said, especially with the veteran running backs, and that's why I always have a lot of success during the offseason buying these veteran running backs, is because everyone's like, oh, I don't want him. He's 30 years old. Get him off my team. Okay, and then when he drops 3 straight 20-point games in week 1 to 3, like Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, and Joe Mixon do year after year after year, when they're always a value, people are like, I'll pay a late first for them now. So it's literally, you could just literally buy veteran running backs and sell them during the year and guaranteed double your value every single year. It's the easiest thing in the world. So if you want to build roster accumulation and take a little bit of gamble, there's a move for you.
Snoop loves his running backs. This is a wide receiver show, and he's still going back to buying Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, and Alvin Kamara. We say it every pod. Just go do it, because that's literally what we've been preaching.
Easy money.
Absolutely. So today, what we want to do, and the guy that's been traded the most, and I think we're going to kind of cover this pretty extensively on some of these guys, is Jordan Addison, according to Dynasty Daddy, has been traded an astonishing 257 times in the last week. So the question is why? So first off, we got to look at the scenario, right? A lot of people were worried that, Kirk Cousins was going to leave and they were not going to have anybody to, replace him. They draft J.J. McCarthy, they signed Sam Darnold, and now people are saying, well, I don't think these quarterbacks can support multiple weapons in this offense. That's the obvious, part that's in there. You look at it, T.J. Hawkinson is not going to be back early at all. He's definitely going to be coming back probably mid-season or a little bit later by the time he's fully ready to go. They aren't sure if McCarthy's going to start or Sam Darnold, so that is definitely a little bit of a worry, I think, coming off of what Cousins did. But then you look at what Jordan Addison was playing with in the second half of the year with Josh Dobbs, with, random backups here and there. The difference is we got to look at all of our different tools. Keep Trade Cut had him in November of 2023. So he started out with 7 of his first 8 games with Cousins, had 60-plus yards and a touchdown, and 6.5 targets every single game, right? So he started out in November as the wide receiver 13 in Dynasty. So that was when Snoog and I were saying, dude, sell. Just sell. We like the prospect.
He was over Devontae Smith and Chris Olave. Yeah.
When he came out, though, we both liked him as a prospect. He's a great route runner. He takes care of business. He has a nose for the end zone. He's a fantastic wide receiver too, and he's in that kind of area. He blew up all the way to wide receiver 13 when we were saying to sell. You look at in January, he went to wide receiver 18. After the draft, after they get a quarterback. So right in January, Kirk Cousins, we already knew, was out of the way.
Yep.
As soon as Kirk Cousins leaves and they draft J.J. McCarthy, who was early first round, now all of a sudden, Jordan Addison's ADP has fallen all the way to wide receiver 26. So, we've gone a full series here where wide receiver 13 was insane. Wide receiver 18 was too expensive. Wide receiver 26 feels like he's a lot more appropriately priced.
Yeah.
Talk to me, and I know you don't necessarily, love his value going forward, but we're going to talk about a bunch of different trades. Tell me why you aren't in on Jordan Addison at his current price at wide receiver 26.
Yeah, I actually think wide receiver 26 is definitely where he should be valued. I still think it's maybe I'd rather a few guys over him there, like the JSNs, maybe the Zay Flowers. I'm taking those guys over him, but I think 26 to 28 is right where I have him in my rankings. I think that's appropriately priced. Kirk Cousins is a fantasy football passing machine. He was blessed to start off his, imagine Garrett Wilson started his career off with a Kirk Cousins, or Drake London did, or Chris Olave. He was blessed enough to get that, have Jefferson on the outside, just getting all the focus, and that just creates, that's why he was scoring, 8 touchdowns in the first, 8 weeks. That's why it was all the attention was on Jefferson with Kirk Cousins, who's a guy that can throw for 4,000, 5,000 yards in a season. And then Hawkinson was there. He went down. And then it's okay, now Kirk went down. And then Addison started to fall like crazy. The points per game went down like crazy. I think he was in 9 or 10 points per game. It's just, we don't know what J.J. McCarthy is. I think he's a fine prospect. I don't think he's a bad player at all. I think he's good. I think he has like we've said this before, he has like that high end game manager upside, like your Brock Purdy's, your Jared Goff's, your Kirk Cousins. I think he has a lot to grow and he has a lot to learn. And I don't know if he's going to be like this gunslinging, like 5,000-yard passer, which you kind of want to see when you have like a Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Jordan Addison on the roster. I'd just rather go get like a Flowers or a Pickens or a Tank Dell or that are like just a little bit more value that you can add on to him. But I mean, 13 was ridiculously high. 18 was even like, all right, come on, what are we doing, guys? Like, what does this guy have going for him that's perfect for him to be a fantasy asset that you're looking for? It's not like he's George Pickens on his own team with literally nobody else around him to command targets. Like, he's literally playing behind the best wide receiver ever, and he's playing behind one of the best tight ends in the league when healthy. So it's like wide receiver 28, 26, that's where you're looking like, okay, I'm buying a low-end to high-end wide receiver too. He's young. He's a great player. If J.J. McCarthy is a good quarterback, then it's going to be a good value, and he's probably never going to get above the 20s. So it's like
and
you're
I
paying
think
for his ceiling. But
a lot of it we're looking at is what J.J. McCarthy is going to be able to do. I do think, ceiling-wise, and I think he's going to be like a T. Higgins type. You know what I mean? Where he's going to ultimately always be in that wide receiver 2 range. But those guys have value in Dynasty for sure. You know what I mean? And I think right now I'm comfortably paying a late 25 first, something in that 110 to 111 range in a current draft. But what we want to talk about is some ideas of if you're buying and then some ideas of you're selling. Because again, that's what I love about Dynasty, right? If we all are trying to win, we all prefer, the veteran that's scoring the points. Now we're looking at guy's just 22 years old. He has a long career ahead of him here. I think he's someone that is going to be, first round draft capital. Once he gets that second contract, we saw what happened with T. Higgins, where before he got franchise tagged, that value skyrocketed. And we've seen that he's able to be, a borderline wide receiver 1. So my first one is I want to talk to you about tiering up. So if you had, let's say, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Legette, Ricky Pearl, would you add a 25 second to get to Jordan Addison, or would you keep those 3 wide receivers?
I would add to get Jordan Addison. I think it's just a much safer asset, and then that's like the first building block, right? And then you could go get Pickens by adding to Addison, or you can go get like a Nico Collins or like a Roma Dunze. So I always like to tier up because you can always tier up again, right? And sometimes it's cheaper than you think it'll be.
That's why I thought these are all the suggestions that I made before we get to the real actionable trades that actually happened. But I mean, the way I was looking at it is rookie season with 70 receptions, 900 yards, and 10 touchdowns. If he had a stable quarterback there, we'd be talking about him, as a fringe top 15 wide receiver. Because the quarterback isn't stable, because he's behind Justin Jefferson for so long, that's not going to happen. But tiering up here off of an Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Legette, I think is very, very actionable. Another one to make an insulated trade to get to Jordan Addison. You could give up Chris Olave to get Addison in a random 25 first. It would have to be something that you could fall into that mid area. And when we talk about insulated trades, for you guys that don't know, obviously that's when you tier off of a higher asset, you tier down, you get a player that you believe in, and then you get a first on top of that to try to make sure you insulate that value. You give yourself 2 chances. Another one is a reduced volatility trade, and I've been talking about these a lot, is taking a running back who's young and has similar value. I took James Cook, has similar value to Jordan Addison, trading James Cook and Cooper Kupp, so you flip it, right? You have a young running back and an old wide receiver, to get a young wide receiver and an old running back, because running backs are production players, wide receivers are mainstays. So if you trade James Cook and Cooper Kupp type for Jordan Addison and Joe Mixon, you get a wide receiver that's going to put up numbers, you get an elite level running back, and we're trying to buy production that way.
Yeah.
So here's the ones that I want to talk to you about is, okay, we're selling him now. So a contender, Jordan Addison. How are you trying to tier up? What are you trying to do? I have so many different I think you could get Devontae Adams, Mike Evans plus for Jordan Addison. I think you could take Jordan Addison and add a second and stay in a similar age bracket and get DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, Brandon Ayuk. I feel like, if you are trying to get into an area where I think you could get Devontae plus Aaron Jones. I think you could get Devontae plus a second. I think, those are some of the kind of moves where it's Dynasty. everybody's got different mentalities. You look what there is. If you believe in Addison, if you don't, it's time to sell.
Yeah, I would that would be the first two guys I target. Mike Evans, Devontae Adams. I mean, those are guys, even Amari Cooper, throw him in there, you'd probably get a heftier plus than the first two I named. But I'm looking for veterans that are producing at a high level that we know for damn sure are going to be top 20 players next year. And I think that's what you'll get from those guys. So it's essentially tearing off an Addison, getting youth on top or picks or like another veteran producer like an Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, maybe a James Conner, Austin Eckler type of player on top of like a guy like an Adams, Mike Evans, who have top 10 to 12 upside, Amari Cooper, who has top 15 upside. Then you're playing that game where you're getting a 2-for-1, you're getting two veterans that are producers, and you're tearing off a guy that could lose value this year. Like Jordan Addison could finish like outside the top 25 to 30. I would not be shocked if he does at all. And he's losing value next year. I don't care how many people like him. If he finishes like wide receiver 42, like he is not going to be valued as the wide receiver 26 in Dynasty. And then everyone's going to be like, okay, it's over.
So perfect timing here. Scott Kobe, hopefully I pronounced that right, from YouTube says, what do you guys think of Keenan Allen's outlook this year? So Snoog, what I want you to do is, because I actually listed in my tweet that I put out there that tearing up to DJ Moore, tearing up to Rome Odunze, tearing down to Keenan Allen. You know, I think, what is that price for each one for you? You know, like for me, the one that I was really trying to do is an early second plus Addison for Rome Odunze, because I think Rome Odunze has the future to be an alpha. And I was thinking maybe, you know, you add a mid second to get to DJ Moore, or you get a second on top of Keenan Allen. Like, how people keep asking me, how do you see that wide receiver room breakdown? Who's the one this year? Who's the two and who's the three? Because that's what everybody's trying to figure out, right? Like, we got the dynasty values, right? Those are things that don't really change too much. I think Odunze is going to rise in value. Keenan's probably at his height, and I think DJ Moore is, probably where he belongs. So, who do you see winning out this wide receiver room?
Oof, this is so tough, man. Because I mean, they have a rookie QB. You almost love Odunze the most because they were drafted together. They're building that chemistry together. They went through all the draft process together. I wouldn't be shocked if when it's all said and done after this year, Rome Odunze is like the bona fide alpha that we're all like, he's a top 10 to 12 dynasty wide receiver. Like I think he could get 900 to 1,000 yards. I don't know if he leads the room. I really think it's going to be pretty evenly split. Like, I think it's just going to be like, wow, they just have too many mouths to feed.
But it's what narrative you're going to believe, right? Yeah. Do you believe Rome Odunze is a Jamar Chase level where he's just going to supplant everybody and jump to the top? And I'm not quite there, but I do see an area where if DJ Moore were to miss 4 to 6 games, that Rome goes ham. You know, like where he just takes off. I think Keenan's going to be the third guy in the mix. He's going to be in the slot, but he's going to be the best wide receiver 3, hands down, but I think he's still going to get his, you know, and I think if we had to say, if I'm predicting who has the most fantasy points, it's still going to be Moore. Keenan's going to be second, but Rome's going to be really close to Keenan, and that's where, you know, we get into those kind of areas. The next part we have here is I want to talk about the actual trades for Jordan Addison. And I know we spent a lot of time on this, but according to, and again, the first one sent in to us through the Patreon. The other 4 are from dynastydaddy.com. Make sure you check them out. Guy said he got Jordan Addison in the 209 for the 204 and 205. I'm smashing that because that's like Michael Penix Jr. and Xavier Legette for Addison and Blake Corum. Yeah, smash. Jordan Addison and Jaden Reed for Brandon Ayuk. I think that's good value. I mean, I like Ayuk, but I'm taking Addison and Reed there if we're talking 12 to 14 team. If it's 10, it's Ayuk. But I mean, I think you get 2 shots there that you can play with a little bit more. I think there's more value there, but that's an interesting one. This one I love. Guy gave up Jordan Addison and Kenneth Walker for Garrett Wilson. Smash. Just go get Garrett Wilson. Jordan Addison is an means to an end. You want to make sure you use him to tier up. Jordan Addison a third for Terry McLaurin and Cooper. Smash McLaurin and Cooper. I love that. You know what I mean? And that's what you and I have said. If you're all in, you could trade Addison for this. You go do it. Addison and Pittman for Etienne and Jacobs. Etienne and Jacobs, you know, and that's that reduced volatility again. You're getting Etienne. You're getting 2 running backs there. I think you're going to absolutely smash that one. So that one's all fantastic. That was, again, they were 257 trades for Jordan Addison. The next one, the most trades there were for T. Higgins. Then the third one, the one I want to get into pretty heavily, the third most traded asset in Dynasty. as far as wide receivers. In the last 7 days, Jaxon Smith-Njigba has been traded 248 times. So again, there's a theme here, right, Snook? I mean, Addison's polarizing. T. Higgins is polarizing. Jaxon Smith-Njigba is polarizing. People don't know how to value these guys because you're like, okay, well, if McCarthy doesn't pan out, Addison's not going to pan out. And if Jaxon Smith-Njigba doesn't take the next step, then we're losing value here. And early on in the offseason, I was saying, you know what? I'm reshuffling the deck. I'm trading Jaxon Smith-Njigba for the 109, and getting that area where I'm going to get Brooks, McConkey, Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr., and JSN. The worry there is the target share. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett are still heavily involved. Lockett's starting to get a little bit older. Yeah. And now we have, Geno's there. I think Sam Howell, dude, if Sam Howell gets to start by midseason, I think Jaxon Smith-Njigba is going to blow up. Because I've been getting Sam Howell in all my startups. I just feel like he's a superior talent to what we've seen from Geno Smith last year. Not Geno Smith 2 years ago, but it's a new system. It's a new opportunity for Jaxon Smith-Njigba. In November, he was the wide receiver 18. In January, he was the wide receiver 20. Now he's fallen all the way to the wide receiver 25. Nothing has changed, but he's dipped in value. And I think that's really what we got to look at here, Snoog, is JSN season. A lot of people are really all in on that. Finished his rookie season, 63 receptions, 628 yards, 4 touchdowns. 68% of his snaps were in the slot. 33% were behind the line of scrimmage. So they're trying to get him the ball. They're really trying to manufacture things. Metcalf is still there. Lockett's aging. I think Grubb, from what I've been looking at, is just excellent at utilizing slot wide receivers. I think that's going to be a huge feather in his cap. And then you look at what he was such an elite college producer. We forget that he was hampered by that early. He had, wrist surgery. So he missed a couple weeks. He came back, I think, a little prematurely because that's what kind of guy he is. So let's start talking, man. Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Are we making excuses on what's going to happen? Is he the next Jameson Williams where we're like, what if, or is he going to boom this year?
I like him a lot. I still think he's such a good talent. Like, we saw him flash it multiple times last year. He had a game winner that he tracked over his shoulder. Beautiful catch against the Eagles. He had that one-hander down the sideline. He's had multiple scenarios where you're like, that's the Jaxon Smith-Njigba I remember watching at Ohio State, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this is the guy that put up 1,600 yards as a sophomore in the same similar room as Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. I know they were opted out when he had like 400 of those yards, but he still put up at least 1,000 yards with those guys. He's a guy that had a 99th percentile in all agility circuits, 3-cone, the shuttle, everything. He just blew the doors off it. We knew that he had that mold to be a fantasy football target hog, like that slot, elite route runner, good separator, good footwork, quick after the catch.
If he has just went to the Chargers last year.
Yeah,
if he
nothing
just
went away.
The dynasty landscape would be Jaxon Smith-Njigba would be a top 12 dynasty wide receiver if he went to the Chargers last year. You know what I mean? 100%. And that's literally, it's the situation. I think DK Metcalf's always going to, he's in that area where he's going to outperform Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Yep. But I think you get a T. Higgins, Jamar Chase light type version in Seattle, just no Joe Burrow. That's the biggest difference, right? Is we know Joe Burrow can support 2 elite assets. Geno Smith kind of has in the past, but nothing top notch.
If we see 2022 Geno, I think JSN goes for 1,000 yards and he finishes as like a top 20, top 15 wideout. It's feasible. Literally, Geno was horrible last year, and so was Drew Lock. So it's like, even DK wasn't great. Like, DK finished outside the top 20. So it's like, I don't know. We could blame JSN. He was a rookie, and Geno was absolutely atrocious last year. People try to like blame JSN and act like Geno was good, but Geno was literally so bad. And like that's.
He had 64 receptions on 93 targets. So, I mean, he was not getting as many catchable passes as they were the year before.
It was horrible. And a lot of them were behind the line of scrimmage. So that speaks for itself.
So if we're trading for Jaxon Smith-Njigba, a couple ideas I had here, and I'm going to go over 3 different ideas, and I want you to chime in once we get done, is the tier up trade. So again, we're just trying to, make ourselves go from a player that we're not quite as high on into Jaxon Smith-Njigba. For me, I'm looking at Josh Downs, and then, or some guys that I think are veterans that are going to start losing a little bit of value, where I think now is they're peaked because of recent news, and that's Deontay Johnson and Chris Godwin. If I can add a second to any of those to get to Jaxon Smith-Njigba, because they're starting to get a little bit more hype, I'm doing it. Like same as before. If I can trade anyone outside of after Keon Coleman in your rookie draft, your Purcells, your Legettes, any of those guys, I'm adding a second to get to Njigba all day long.
Yep.
And I just think Coleman's in the dream scenario. Insulated trades. I'm trading Tyreek Hill today for Jaxon Smith-Njigba in a random 25 first if I am rebuilding. I think that's a 2-for-1 shot where I think there's an 85 to 90% chance that Jaxon Smith-Njigba raises in value. I think it's the writing on the wall. That might even be lower. By the season rolls around, I think it's going to be a 95% chance that he goes up. And then reduced volatility, again, similar value. Let me get rid of James Cook and Keenan Allen for Jaxon Smith-Njigba and Alvin Kamara. That's your flip-flop. Rashad White, Kenneth Walker, James Cook, Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Jacobs, DeAndre Swift. If you can get rid of those running backs and replace a older wide receiver, get younger like Jaxon Smith-Njigba and get a production running back, boom. Those are my 3 ideas. What do you think?
Yeah, I love those. Another one that I would add is going from like a JSN or like going from like a Pittman, a DJ Moore, one of those guys to a JSN and trying to get like an Amari Cooper or Terry on top. Because I think that's a big enough gap, especially with how people view JSN, where you can get that veteran wide receiver that people probably value, like that second round pick. Maybe it's Mike Evans and JSN for Michael Pittman in like a third or a second.
Yeah. And then with that same tier,
yeah,
you do that 1-2 flip where you do Pittman in a second for JSN in a first, and sometimes that works where you're going to finish early, you're going to finish as one of the top teams and you give your second, even if that first is 111 versus 212 is a huge difference.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do those 1-2 swaps. And I think we're both in on buying JSN right now. The selling aspect, and these are the ones I really wanted to go with you. JSN in a 25 second or Nico Collins.
Nico.
Yeah, same. JSN in an early 25 second or Rome Odunze.
Rome.
Same. These are my suggestions, but I was having a hard time. Jaxon Smith-Njigba or Mike Evans and Jake Ferguson.
Jason.
Say I was close there. If you say that's Njoku or Ingram,
I just don't care for Ferguson. Yeah.
Tier down, Jaxon Smith-Njigba or a random 25 first and Troy Franklin.
JSN.
Yeah. Here's the 5 real world trades that were made from DynastyDaddy.com. Jaxon Smith-Njigba and Jahan Dotson for Chris Olave. I have to take Olave there.
Yeah.
That's a smash.
I'm smashing Olave.
Jaxon Smith-Njigba or Zamir White and Najee Harris.
Smashing JSN.
Jaxon Smith-Njigba for Rashee Rice. Wow, this guy just didn't know there was anything going on. Jaxon Smith-Njigba for Michael Pittman. I still favor Pittman there. I feel like you should be able to get a 2-3 swap in your favor. Jaxon Smith-Njigba in a random 25 second or Saquon Barkley.
Saquon.
Yeah, I'm there with you for sure. And the next guy, Chris Olave at number 4 with 247 dynasty trades is interesting to me because what he has done in his first 2 seasons, him and Garrett Wilson with absolutely horrendous quarterbacks have put up historical type numbers as far as, what they've been able to do. Chris Olave, you and I both agree is a foundational wide receiver, but he's like the Jason Tatum of wide receivers. Like no one likes him. You're just like, he's boring. I feel like if he won the Super Bowl, he'd be pulling a bunch of Tatums. Where you're like, where you're copying everybody else's moves. But no, I mean, I think Chris Olave has a place as a top 12 dynasty wide receiver. And you look at the rest of this list, Snoog. I mean, it's Addison, Higgins, and Njigba, Olave, Jameson, Jaden Reed, Jahan Dotson, Metcalf, Flowers, Waddle. Aside from Waddle, there's question marks galore on this list. And Chris Olave just has the same exact scenario. I just feel like people are bored with a high-level wide receiver 2. And I feel like they want to try to move up to a 1. But I mean, Olave feels like a buy now. It's weird. I was not there, but I mean, in my startup with, David Gautieri, I took Olave in the 4th round. I think that's where he belongs. I think it's good value.
Yeah, he's interesting because he's a guy that's so talented. He's like silky smooth. Like watching him play, it's like he reminds me a lot of Stephon Diggs, and that was my comp for him coming out of college. Was like a Tyler Lockett plus or like a Stephon Diggs, like one of those elite route runners, separation guy, catches everything, like makes all those crazy catches, like just super smooth, always getting open, but kind of lacks like that yards after catch, like true like beast athlete. Like he's fast as hell, but he's not like a guy that's gonna break 6 tackles and make you miss like Garrett Wilson does, right? So that's kind of where they separate themselves. But Chris Olave, I mean, he just checks every box, and I know a lot of the analytics guys love him because back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. I know he missed like 2 games as a rookie. He was pacing like 1,300 yards. He's the buy. Like if you could get him outside of the top 10 to 12 price-wise, like if you could tear up from Pittman, if you could tear up from DJ Moore, if you could tear up from those guys and get Chris Olave, I'm all for that. He's probably
let's talk some trades because I got the last 5 here from Dynasty Daddy again. It's not Dynasty Dad. He's Dynasty Daddy FF. I'm Dynasty Dad. You know, we'll get together. So Chris Olave and CJ Stroud, or Josh Allen and Jahmyr Gibbs.
Chris Olave, CJ Stroud, Josh Allen. I'm taking Josh Allen and Jahmyr.
Yeah, that's a smash. Chris Olave or Zay Flowers and Jaden Reed.
Chris Olave.
That's close for me. I might lean Flowers, but it really
Flowers is really damn good. Like if Flowers was on the Chargers,
correct,
like he would be a top 12 dynasty wideout.
But he's on the Ravens, and they're going to run even more this year. Chris Olave or Mike Evans in a random 26 first.
Olave.
100%. Chris Olave or Devonta Smith and a late 25 first.
Devontae Smith in a first?
Yeah.
Smashing that side.
Yeah, for
Smith.
sure. Chris Olave and a 25 first, or Christian Watson and Breece Hall.
Breece Hall. Wait. Chris Olave in a first?
Yeah.
Give me Olave.
So that's where I'm at too, and I feel like a lot of people are just kind of they're down on Olave for no reason, you know, other than they're just kind of tired of the scenarios.
They got rid of Carmichael. They added Clint Kubiak, who's the Shanahan system, part of that tree. He's a guy that's ran the passing game coordinator for the 49ers the past few years. I mean, that offense is going to be a lot better. We're going to see a lot more Kamara, Chris Olave utilized to their strengths, not just Taysom Hill, HB Blast, right? Like, we're going to finally see Chris Olave. He's going to probably win. He wins across the middle of the field and downfield, and that's exactly how Shanahan runs his type of offenses, is that heavy West Coast play action across the middle. We're going to see a ton of that with Carr to Chris Olave. Efficiency. We're going to see probably 15 to 16, 17 yards per catch out of Chris Olave. I'm excited.
Over or under 100 receptions?
I think it'll be under. If I had to give a legit stat line for him, I'd say like 80 to 90 catches, 1,200 to 1,300-ish yards, and like 8 to 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
If that's like a true, like, realistic ceiling.
And it's going to be the most under the radar season that looks like that ever, because
it's going to be like Ayuk. How Ayuk was this last year. Good. That's exactly what Chris Olave is going to be.
Marty just said, morning, fellas. So Marty is in the new Smash Accept 16. Yes, there are 16 of them now. We just got the Derby style, so he got the 101 pick to decide where he wants to draft. Snook, you know, I'm excited to do one more. I feel like I'm almost reached my limit. But if you guys, you know, the only place you can get into those now is the Patreon, because I literally get 25 DMs a week saying, yo, how do I get in one of these Smash Accept leagues? And it's just become so much demand that we're just doing them in the Patreon only. The fifth guy on this list for the market watch is Jameson Williams. So this one we're going to talk a little bit more is Jameson Williams. Is it circumstances or is it bust? You know, and he was traded an incredible 228 times over the last week. So if you look at that, I mean, you know, there are a ton of dynasty leagues, but you look at how much alphas are being traded. You know, you look at your Jeffersons, your Chases, the guys like that are getting traded like 10 times per week. You know, guys like Jameson Williams, 228 times. So why? Detroit offense is elite, but the targets, you know, may not justify his value. In November of his rookie season, he was wide receiver 26. So right in that same area as, you know, in the similar area as where we were looking at for JSN. In 2024, he was the wide receiver 36 in January. Now he's the wide receiver 49. So, I mean, he is very appropriately priced now at this point. He's still just 23 years old. You look at his last season at Alabama, and coming out, Snook, this dude was electric. I mean, he people were saying Tyreek Hill Jr. You're saying 79 receptions, 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns. No breakout age, but he was like an extremely late breakout age. Better for best ball, in my opinion, for his true home run threat. He's going to have games where he has 3 receptions for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns because he burns twice deep. And I think he's great for that Detroit offense. I struggle to invest in him too much. But if you look at it over the stretch, over the last 5 games, you know, he was suspended. he comes back, struggles for a little bit over the last 5 games. His yards per catch, his average, his yards per target, everything was top 24 down the stretch in those type of metrics. His value right now in the Patreon, I have his wide receiver 53 in that 209 range that I'm comfortably playing a late second, but I'm not actively pursuing him. Am I wrong here? Are you buying in on Jameson Williams? Like, there are very few people that are saying, you know what, I'm all in. But when I put the tweet out there, I mean, I had at least 15 people be like, yo, Dad, you're way too low on him. This is someone that has extreme upside. And it's like, it's going to take a Jameson Williams injury it's going to take a Amon-Ra injury or a Laporta injury. I mean, he's down there on that totem pole.
Yeah, I mean, he's even behind Gibbs as a pass catcher on that team. Like, he's the fourth option. I don't know if Goff can get there with all 4. I mean, he damn well did with all 3. He's going to replace like that Josh Reynolds role, and he's going to get targets. He's going to be like an active role player on that team with big play upside. That's exactly what he is. That's what we all know he is. He's fast as can be. He can win downfield. He's going to probably be a guy that, like, if he hits a ceiling, he's like a 50, 60 catch guy for like 800 to 1,000 yards. Like, and it's just going to not be ever really fantasy relevant unless he scores double-digit touchdowns. So it's like, it's interesting with him. I think he's really good for the Lions, and he's a lot better for the NFL and for the Lions than our fantasy football teams, and let's keep it that way. I think I'd rather take the shot on a Dontavian Wicks, like other guys that have the ability to be a true player in an offense and like blow up and bloom as maybe that number 1 or 2 target. I just don't see a path for Jameson Williams there. I don't even think he'll out target the running back on that team. So.
And this is the time of year where we start telling ourselves narratives one way or another. I do think there is at least a 70% chance that he does increase in value, because right now, Snook, he's worth the 209 to 212, and you'd be lucky to get it. In rookie drafts, if you have him, you're not going to do it. I only drafted 1 share of Jameson Williams, and I flipped him for, on the clock, a random 24 first and the 210 last year, and drafted Sam Laporta at 210. So I felt sexy. I felt like Jameson got me to where I wanted to be. Now you're in an area where it's Snoog. I mean, I think there is a real world scenario where you look at the Treylon Burks, the Sky Moores, the Elijah Moores, and he could slip into that irrelevant area, where I'm personally tearing up off of any of those guys, plus a 25-second to get to Jameson Williams if we're doing some buys. I'm not actively buying, but if I can give up Treylon Burks, Sky Moore, Elijah Moore, one of those type of guys, just get those crotch stains off my roster. I mean, there's skid marks on your roster. You look at those, and a lot of guys are coming into the Patreon now, and they'll be like, Dad, I'm rebuilding. Let me see it, show you your roster. And I'm like, oh gosh, you haven't been listening to the pod. You've been drafting all these guys. You have all the Sky Moores and the Treylon Burks. And hey, no offense to you guys. You don't know what you don't know. But when you come join the Smash Accept Patreon, we'll get you straight.
You won't make that mistake. I'll promise you that.
But that's a move where I'm just like, I'm trying to get off of any of those guys if they believe in them. Insulated trades to make. I think you can trade Michael Pittman for Jameson Williams and a random 25 first and a rebuild. And I do think Jameson Williams has a role on a rebuilding team, because like I said, there is at least a 75% chance that he does increase in value. That's what you want. Getting rid of Pittman. Pittman's going to be worth the same as a random 25 first next year. You win twice. Reduce volatility, and this one you might not like as much, but I'm trading Kendre Miller and Keenan Allen for Jameson Williams and Alvin Kamara. That's the closest I can come up with value-wise. Is he's worth something in that, that really 210 to 212 range. Kendre's there. There aren't many running backs that are in that. Maybe a Jalen Wright, kind of go in that same area. So, and we're not saying to actively go out there. I think the only teams that should be really trying to trade for Jameson Williams is someone that has Jared Goff or someone that's rebuilding. Because if you have Goff and you have Amon-Ra St. Brown and you add J-Mo cheap and Amon-Ra gets hurt or Laporta gets hurt, I do think Jameson Williams does have. I mean, let's be honest. If we said Amon-Ra was out all year, I would believe that Jameson Williams could hit 1,000 yards. You know, like I think it could happen. He's that talented. He's just that far down. So something has to happen.
He reminds me of like Will Fuller Texan days. Like that's like what I could see him getting to for a ceiling.
With normal size adult hands. You know, Will Fuller still tested in at one of the smallest hands size ever at the combine. I know that was before your day. You're more the Kenny Pickett small hands. But if you're selling, if I'm tearing up on contender, and I think this is reasonable, Snoog, is if you could give up J-Mo in a mid-second for Devontae, and I know we always, like every pod, everybody harasses us. They're like, Dad and Snoog, every podcast you say, buy Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, cheap. You talk about Mixon, you talk about Kamara, you talk about Henry. That's because they're just so cheap. So if you could add a second to J-Mo, I would do that all day long.
Yeah.
If I'm tearing up, you know, if I could give up J-Mo in a late second for Keon and a third just to reset the clock, because what Jameson Williams, if Jameson Williams and Keon Coleman both posted an 800-yard season with 4 touchdowns, Coleman's up here, J-Mo's dropping. You know, or J-Mo's going to move up, but he's not going to get to that same level as a guy who doesn't have any warts on his resume.
Yeah.
And then a contender flip, you know, if you could, and this one seems a little dirty, but if you could trade Jameson Williams for Jacoby Myers and Gus Edwards or Aaron Jones, James Conner, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, 2 of those guys are one of those guys plus a Zach Moss, I'm all in it. You know, and that's kind of where we're at. Recent dynasty trades, this is your smash or pass. J-Mo or a random 25-second.
If I can project that second to be early or mid, I'd take that. Otherwise, I'd take J-Mo. Just for the upside shot.
Or Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones.
If I'm rebuilding, though, I would take Jameson. I'd take the shot on it. These are all ones that were actually, you know, recently made. Jameson Williams in a late 25 first or George Pickens.
Pickens.
Yeah, I like that. Jameson Williams for Nick Chubb. Now, this one here is, again, dynasty sometimes just makes sense. If you're rebuilding, I want J-Mo. If you're contending, give yourself a shot at Chubb. Jameson Williams or Jake Ferguson.
Give me Fergie in tight end premium.
Fergie gonna love you a long time. I think he's going to really ascend in that Dallas offense this year, where at number 2 in targets. So we really hit hard on 3 of these guys. Let's talk a little bit more. You know, we moved to our number 6, Jaden Reed. I think we've talked about him ad nauseum on the podcast. You know, he's both a buy and a sell. Right now, he's going for that 110 to 112 range. I think, you know, a Devo Light type player is going to be relevant for a while. Number 7 is the one that blows my mind. It's Jahan Dotson. You know, Jahan Dotson's value is just driven up dramatically because Jaden Daniels is there. He had a couple flash games as a rookie, not much last year. What are you doing with Jahan Dotson? I mean, I own 1 share. I just drafted him in Smash 13 in like the 15th round before they drafted Jaden Daniels because the writing was on the wall that he was going to increase in value. I don't want him anymore. What are you doing with him?
Dotson's talented. I think he's a good player. I just don't think he'll ever be like anything like top 24 asset, but like he's like a guy that's someone you're grabbing for depth, you're grabbing for high-end flex play, you're grabbing for a wide receiver 3 spot. Like he's that type of player. First round pick, great hands, good route runner, playmaker.
As soon as he pops off, which he will, sometime in week 1 through 4, he's going to have a game with 2 touchdowns or 100 plus yards and a touchdown. And that's what I'm flipping him in a second for a first. I'm trying to just move off of him. Because, Snook, we're going to do a podcast later about some of these wide receivers where it's like, Jahan Dotson, I never really want to put in my lineup unless it's just, you know, the end of the road.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like my last guy, I would rather move up from him. So here's the trades that I looked. Dynasty Daddy, Jahan Dotson for Marquise Brown. I mean, come on.
Marquise.
You got a guy in KC. Absolutely. Jahan Dotson or Josh Downs. This has gotten closer because of Adonai Mitchell, but I'm with you. Jahan Dotson in a 25 fourth or a random 25 second?
Second.
Same. I'm resetting the clock. Jahan Dotson or Kendre Miller?
Kendre.
Yeah. Jahan Dotson and Deshaun Watson or Will Levis in a 25 first?
Will Levis in a first.
Absolutely. Like this, but they're starting to get some hype around Jahan Dotson, and I'm all for selling him at these prices. You know, like
I've said it time and time again, Dad. They make Dynasty easy for us. We just got to capitalize.
And people come to me and they say, well, Dad, you posted these guys. These are the most recent trades. But I can't seem to. I put them on the block and no one made an offer. Go to the guy that drafted Jaden Daniels. He's going to want to offer you something for it. You know, like be aggressive. So many guys are talking to me now and they're like, they think that the trade block is just the best way to do things. And it never is. It literally never is. It's the best way to get trash offers in your inbox. The best way to go in.
Single person.
Yeah. the best way to go is find a guy that you want off another roster that's similarly valued as Jahan Dotson and start from there. So go find, from this podcast, okay, you know what? I want to get to Jordan Addison. So I'm going to make him an offer of Jahan Dotson in a third for Addison. Wait for him to come back for Jahan Dotson in a second. Hit that, get Addison, move up. Then take Addison and move up to Garrett Wilson. Then, you know what I mean? Start to build yourself up to wide receivers that you want on your team. If you don't want Jahan Dotson, tier up, but don't just put him on the trade block and expect everybody to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I got to make an offer. Like the trade block is meant for, in my opinion, Snoog, when I'm trying to trade Justin Jefferson. I'll put him up there and I'll put, hey, legitimately looking for offers on Justin Jefferson. If you put the trade block up for Taysom Hill, I get so pissed. I get up on the trade notifications, and I know all my leagues are going to put Taysom Hill up now because I said that. But you get the notification, and then you jump in there, and you're like, "What the dude? Don't waste my time."
Yeah.
couple
KJ Hamler.
Yeah.
Just drop them.
Yeah, I know. There's some guys they'll go in there like the rookie draft's coming up, and they have 5 picks, and they'll put 6 absolute bums up. Like you're just like, no, I do not want those guys. I don't want. Exactly. The next one's interesting because DK Metcalf is the 8th most traded wide receiver. And I think DK Metcalf, real quick, because I know we're getting close to that mark, I'm just going to go over the trades because you and I both like DK Metcalf. But he's kind of like him and T. Higgins. And some of these guys are getting into that 25, 26, 27-year-old range. And everybody feels like they're getting out. So let's go over some trades. DK Metcalf in a first for Garrett Wilson.
Garrett.
DK Metcalf or Romeo Doubs in a first.
DK.
DK Debo or Ladd and Brian Thomas?
That's one of those. If I'm rebuilding the other side, if I'm contending, easily DK. I might actually just take DK Debo regardless.
I am too. I'm starting to really love Ladd the more and more I get into it. But DK in a fourth for Trey McBride. I mean, that's a smash for McBride. We don't even. Yeah. Or DK or Jordan Addison.
DK.
Yeah. 2 more guys we have here. Zay Flowers is actually the 9th most traded.
Love me some Zay.
I've come full circle on that, but I think there's a real world scenario. I think he will be a top 12 dynasty wide receiver by the end of the year. I think that could really happen. I think also, he could just hover in this area. This is a make or break for season for him. Even though he had a fantastic rookie season, really balled out in the playoffs. If he has another really good season, I think he ascends up into that top 12. If he doesn't, I feel like he hovers in that 15 to 20 for the next 2 years because everybody's going to be like, that's who he is. So here's the trades. Zay Flowers for Ricky Purcell and Malachi Corley. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Flowers by a mile.
That's short by a pair of seconds. Zay Flowers, Baker, and a first, or Joe Burrow?
Baker Mayfield?
Yeah.
Joe Burrow.
Yeah. If that was that would almost have to be an early 25 first. Zay Flowers or Jahan Dotson and Keon Coleman?
Zay Flowers.
Yeah, I think so too. Zay Flowers and Derrick Henry or Rome Odunze?
Rome Odunze.
I think that's the perfect trade right there, Snoop, because I bet that Zay Flowers and Derrick Henry team are trading in a rebuild or a retool, and they want to go from Zay Flowers, who could ascend to there, to Rome Odunze, who will ascend to there.
Exactly.
Zay Flowers or T. Higgins? I want to get younger. Give me Zay.
Yeah, that's close, but I think T is going to have... I think it's finally going to be T's year. If he stays fully healthy, and I know that's hard to say with him, but he was really freaking good 2 years ago.
What I'm worried about
games.
Is because of the injuries and because last year he didn't seem, because of the quarterback play, didn't seem super motivated to be on the field. With the franchise tag, some guys ball out and they're like, I got to get paid. Other guys are like, I'm playing under the franchise. If I got to sit out, I'm going to sit out.
We saw Debo, DK, Marquise Brown all have a really good.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, they could do it either way on that because everybody's getting paid. Now, the last guy on the list, again, surprising to me, Jalen Waddle, has been traded 200 plus times in the last 7 days.
Really?
Waddle, and I think Waddle's one that I'd be buying. And that's why I'm looking at this list and I'm trying to say, who am I buying? Who am I selling? Jalen Waddle or Tajay in a 25 first?
Waddle
or Burton Coleman in a second?
Waddle
or Addison in a second?
Waddle
or Cup in a late first?
Waddle
or Rome in a second?
Rome.
It's a 27 second, but I think I have Rome. I almost have over Jalen, but I still have Jalen Waddle. No, I have Jalen over him, but I mean, like, if I'm doing a startup draft, I'm really debating that between the two of them.
Yeah, they're both like top 15, 16 wideouts for me.
Yeah. No, that was a fun episode. You know, we really wanted to talk about these guys. Overall, just to end the pod, let's go over the list. You just tell me in a nutshell if you'd rather buy or sell these players. All right.
Okay.
So Jordan Addison,
Sell.
Higgins,
Buy.
JSN,
Buy.
Olave,
Buy.
Jameson,
Sell.
Reed,
Sell.
Dotson,
Sell.
Metcalf,
Buy.
Flowers,
Buy.
Waddle.
Buy.
Now today, just so you guys know, I did just drop. There are 7 running backs that have been traded over 200 times in the past week. We'll cover them as well, but that's McLaughlin, Javante, Zamir, Ramondre, DeAndre, Kyron, and Zach Moss. So we will continue to kind of jump into these things. Chandler Hughes is letting me know that, hey, you're up in the Derby draft. 1, 2, 5, and 9 are off the board. We're pick on the live stream for us. I mean, Snoop, that's tough. It's like 3 is obviously got to be in consideration. 1, 2, 5, and 9 are gone. I got the 4th. I'm up here, so it's either 3, 6, 7, 8, 10 through 12.
I would take 3. You get Stroud or Hurts, or take 4 and just get Stroud or Hurts, whoever they don't take.
Snoop's letting you know, guys. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the process. That was good.